Good morning. It's Archeage 101, the 2019 edition. My name is Jalan, and today we're going to talk about the basics. Now, guys, before we even start, like the man said, this is going to be a bunch of...
This made your daughter shit.
There's nothing I can do about that. We got to lay in the foundation before we can get into the cool stuff. We got to crawl before we can walk and run. So the first thing we're going to talk about is what type of game is Archeage? Now, over the years that I've played Archeage, I've heard people call this a theme park. Archeage is definitely not a theme park. I've heard people call it a sand park. Okay, that might be true. I've heard it called a sandbox without the sand. In fact, I've called it that for a long time. But if we want to really get a good definition, we can go to Technopedia. We can grab what does a sandbox mean. And what this is it's a style of game in which minimal character limitations are placed on the gamer. It allows the gamer to roam and change a virtual world at will. And, a lot of those things are somewhat true. So I don't think Archeage is going to be a sandbox, but I definitely think we could call it a limited sandbox. And what I mean by that is you can kill members of your own faction, but only in some zones. Unless you declare a dominion, unless they have a peace treaty up. So while there's no hard and fast rule that says, no, you can't kill members of your own faction, there's a lot of limitations on the gamer. You can take over castles. That's a big thing about Archeage. Craft, claim, conquer. You can certainly conquer a castle up in Aurora, but only on some weekends. And only if you have a siege declaration scroll. And only if your guild is high enough in the rankings can you get a siege declaration scroll. So again, a lot of limitations. And then finally, one of the premier features of Archeage is the housing. And you can own housing, but only in predetermined housing zones, and only if you can find a space. So that seems like an awful lot of limitations on the player. So if you're coming into Archeage thinking it's a pure sandbox, I want you to realize it is not a pure sandbox. It's very sandbox-esque. So just come in with your eyes open. Now, big thing I know a lot of people want to know before they ever invest time, effort, energy, or money into a game is they want to know what the business model is. Now, I will tell you, Archeage is free to play. There is an entire spectrum of completely free to play to whale, because there are a couple of optional things in the free to play game. Number one, you got this optional subscription service called Patron. We're going to talk about Patron a little bit more in a second. And then you've got this optional cash shop. Now, the optional cash shop it's an optional cash shop. There are an awful lot of things in the cash shop that I would consider necessary. Expansion scrolls come out of the cash shop. You can't buy them with in-game currency. But the good news is you can earn credits in-game by trading real-world gold for Apex. And that is a concept we'll cover later in Archeage 101. But what I want to talk about right now, and there wasn't really a good place to shove this concept, so I'm going to talk about the split region concept right now before we get in the game. I want you to hear it now in the basics so that later on when we talk about earning gold or using cross-server, you've already heard it as like a foundational thing. So as you see my character right now, this is my North American character. You see down here, I have 3,664 labor. We're going to talk about labor in just a second. I have 683 loyalty tokens, and I have 238 credits on my marketplace account. Now, the thing is that Archeage has a common credit pool, but each region, North America and Europe, has their own labor and their own loyalty tokens. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over right now. You see that same 238 credits on my European alt, but I have 2,750 labor, and I have 792 loyalty tokens. So I can go and earn money on the Rofé, on the Euro servers. I can buy an Apex right here. And then if I apply this Apex to my account, what's going to happen is I'm going to obtain 1,250 credits. There's my 1488. And when I click back over to Jalan, there's my 1488. You just saw it happen real time. That is the split region concept. Separate labor, separate loyalty tokens, The credit pool is shared. Now, I know that might be like the 50,000 foot view for you guys right now. I just want you to have seen it, have heard it, and then we'll get back to it later. Now, you have to know about Archeage. Archeage is a game that operates on the faction system. So when I come in and I'm going to make a brand new character so you guys can see it, I'm going to come in and here are my options. I can make a Nuian. Now, Nuian Alliance, one of the races is also Nuian. That's all about the lore. These are called the West. You've got the Nuians, the Elves, and the Dwarves. They're called the West because their continent is on the West. Or you got the Haranian Alliance. The Harani are one of the races. And then you've got the Firin and the Warborn. Now, a couple of things here. You must start as one of these two introductory factions or nations, and then you're going to have some choices. Later on, you can choose to go pirate, or you can choose to go to the player nation. What you can never choose to do is a dwarf can never go to the Haranian Alliance, a Firin can never go to the Nuian Alliance. Now, for those of you that are just starting Archeage in 2019, I want to let you know that dwarves and Warborn, these are your catch-up races. The reason why they're catch-up races is they level to 30 a lot faster than a traditional race. These were introduced a couple of years after launch. There were no racial swap certificates based on how the game is coded, so you can't do that. Make sure if you're a new player coming into Archeage, you got friends coming with you, make sure that your friends know which nation you're on. Because like I said, there are no cross-defecting. If you wanted to play with your friend and you're a Warborn and they're a Dwarf, you guys would have to go pirate together, or you'd have to go into a player nation together. And those two places are not going to be new player friendly. Now, if I come back here, real quick, just one more time to tell you, labor points and loyalty tokens are shared by all characters on your account. Yes, your North American has its own pool. Your European has its own pool. But all the characters on this account, they are all going to share the same labor, the same loyalty tokens. This stuff will become a little bit more clear as we get out of the crawl stage. We get into walk and run. Big thing here is you do not need to have a bunch of alts if you want to play every different class in the game. I know a lot of people are used to coming from games like Blade and Soul, Black Desert Online, Revelation Online, WoW. You have to pick a class, and that is it. You pick a character creation, and you're done. What I want to do right now is I'm going to flip back into Jalan, and just to show you why you don't need to make a bunch of alts for classes. When you come into the game, there are going to be the Nui statues you can go to change your trees out, or you can come to a skill manager. As you can see, I have every tree available to me at level 55. I've leveled them all. This gives me access to 165 unique classes. Not all of them are useful. Not all of them are viable. And the next video in this series is going to be on classes specifically. But I did want to let you know that you don't have to worry about making a bunch of alts to play. I want a healer, I want a tank, I want an archer. You can actually do all these things on one character. That is one unique feature about Archeage. Just remember, if you do decide to make a couple of alts, all the alts are going to share labor. All the alts are going to share loyalty. All your alts are going to share your same credit pool. For our next topic, we kind of have a paradox. Do we want to talk about the chicken or the egg first? Do I want to talk about Patron and how it affects labor? Or do I want to talk about labor and how it's affected by Patron? I'm just going to start by talking about Patron. Patron, as you can see up here, this character is Jay's alt account. It is patroned. I have a labor cap of 5,000, and I have a healthy supply of loyalty tokens. I will generate labor whether or not I am online or offline. I'm going to give you guys the math on that in just a second. I come over here to this other alt account. It does not have Patron. It has a 2,000 labor cap, and it does not have any loyalty tokens. The reason for that is because Patron is really the optional subscription for Archeage. And I'm going to call it, quote, optional, because while you can certainly play Archeage, and there is no content that is locked behind Patron, there's no paywall to see like dungeons or raids, There is a little bit of a paywall because you can't own land without Patron. Now, I know some people right there, you're going to be like, I'm out. No sub games for me. One thing I do want you to know is you can completely support your subscription with in-game gold by buying Apex. You saw earlier in the video when I applied that Apex, my account got 1,250 credits. Apex is purchasable for credits for 2,400 credits per month. Now, you are going to get a whole litany of bonuses from having Patron. You're going to get more labor, or more max labor. You're going to get XP bonus, vocation bonus. You do get the cool ability to queue for arenas and access the auction house anywhere. But like I said, the two big things are really the land ownership. You cannot drop land without Patron. You cannot pay your taxes without Patron. Now, in the housing chapter, in a couple of days, couple of weeks, when I get done cutting that video, I am going to talk about the 5-week prepay trick, but we'll talk about that at a later time. Now, the big thing for Patron, though, is that labor. Big thing, Patron, going to have a cap of 5,000 labor. You're going to regenerate 10 labor every 5 minutes, whether or not you're online or not. You'll generate labor when you're offline, when your computer's off. That's going to give you 2,880 labor per day, per 24-hour cycle to work with. On the other hand, if you're a non-patron, you're only going to have a cap of 2,000 labor. You're going to generate 5 labor every 5 minutes, and only when you're online. And that's going to generate you 1,440 labor every day. Now, if labor isn't a big deal to you, then it doesn't really matter. I am going to say that Hiram gear, the new basically non-swipe, non-RNG gear, it's the ketchup gear. It is very labor intensive. You are going to be spending a lot of labor opening it. If you guys want to check out Hiram gear right now before I get to it in the series, the old video just linked above. You can check out Hiram gear there. Now, labor is going to be the bane of your existence. Getting into labor now, every single thing you do in-game takes labor. Anything beyond just hunting mobs, traveling. You are going to get a little bit of currency when you kill a mob, but really you're not going to be able to open the coin purses that the mobs drop. That's going to take labor. If you want to craft, that's going to take labor. If you want to make tax suits, if you want to chop trees, pick crops, fish, everything takes labor. Now, like I said, there are a couple of other ways to get labor. One is just being online and generating labor, whether or not you're patron. Being offline as a patron, you're going to generate labor. What you can do is you can come into the marketplace and you can buy the labor stipend. And what the labor stipend is going to do, and I have one currently running, is every day it's going to mail you 1 bound 1,000 labor pot. The other thing you can buy is you can buy the 30-day vocation stipend. This is going to mail you a 500 labor pot every day. And it also increases your max labor by 1,000, just in case you can't get on all the time. You get that enhanced cap. A couple other things you can do is if you're a patron, you can sleep in your own bed. You can place a bed on your property and sleep. Give me just 1 second and I will get to my property and I'll show you. No, I have a bed, and my bed is a 150 labor regenerator. So what I would do is I could lay here and in about 8 minutes I would finish sleeping. I'd get 150 labor. What I could do above that is I could put on my Gilda pajama set, and I could earn an extra 250 labor. Now, one thing I will point out is that in the cash shop, there is a pay-to-win set of pajamas. It's a 5-piece set, 75 labor per piece with a 75 bonus if you have all the pieces on. If you're not going to pay to win, you can get almost the same thing in the Gilda Star shop for 200 Gilda each. These are going to give you 50 a piece, 50 for the set. Now, what are Gilda Stars? Don't worry, I have an entire video on specialty currencies coming up. And that is really patron and labor covered, again, the basics today. What I want to do next is I want to get into character creation. I just want to show you guys that there is an amazing amount of character creation, character customization that you can do. CryEngine 3 has an amazing character creator. Before you can start tweaking your character, remember I said, guys, there were 11 skill trees. Only 5 of them count as main skill trees. So melee, magic, ranged, healer, magic. There are 2 magic main trees. I don't know why XL chose to do that, but they did. That was their decision. So if you want to just get into the character creator, if you don't care, the preset templates are pretty good, you know. But as you get into the nitty gritty of it, you have a wide depth of. I mean, look at all the nose options, the head options, you know. I also enjoy the fact that, you know, somehow they can rip off DC and not get in trouble. I mean, they got paint, they got beards, they got everything, man. Anything you want to do to a character, you can have at it. Radical character creator. There are people that spend hours making their character. Okay, so here we are. We have dropped into game, and the first thing I want to show you is your maximum zoom out is this far. I don't really like that. We used to have to install a third-party program to fix it. We don't have to do that anymore. Hit escape, come into options, and then you're going to be working with screen first. Obviously, pretty standard settings menu. I prefer to play in borderless window mode. I find the performance is better. I find I get a lot of lag time if I try to swap from Archeage to another window when I'm in full screen. Coming down, I do not use multi-thread rendering. I find I get better performance without it. You're going to have to play with it to see what sort of performance you're getting. One quick trick is if you're getting a lot of errors in the game, a lot of device removed, pop box errors, just switch whatever DX you're using to the other one. That's a quick trick that fixes some things. Restrict max FPS. I would highly recommend restricting it. Right now I'm going to show you in another menu where you can show your FPS. I'm not getting the max anyway. Now remember I showed you that max zoom out. I would recommend going to wide view. And I'll show you the difference in just 1 second. And that is really it for the screen menu. So when I hit apply, I can zoom out this far now. This is the wide view menu. Really kind of useful when you're talking about 100 versus 100 bulk fights. Speaking of 100 versus 100 bulk fights, click on optimization. If you find you're lagging a lot when you get into mass combat, click on optimization, and then it will set all screen quality settings to low. It'll also put people into default player appearance. So if a fight breaks out quickly, you can hit the optimization button. Now, coming back in, screen quality. This is all going to be based on your personal computer, what settings you want, what things you want to tweak. I will tell you for underwater work, I would set visual effects to low. And then water reflection effects, I would unenable them. And then what this is going to do is it's going to take the yellow streaks off of your screen when you're underwater. I have a whole section planned on water stuff, so I'll revisit that trick when that chapter comes up. Another helpful thing when it comes to dealing with less than courteous players, in sound, if you ever hear a really high-pitched, shrill sound, a constant like air raid tone, or just when you're around people, something's less than like audio pleasing, come into your sound settings, come all the way down. If you pop your volume up, then this box becomes available. What that's going to do is that's going to disable player-made music. There are some people out there that like to just play shrill tones because they're not friendly. Coming into game settings, I personally don't want to see my own name above my head, so I'm going to check that off real quick. Depending on what names you want to see, complete customization of what you want to see. You can choose to show somebody's guild name or their family name or their nation name. I like to take nation name off. I don't want big, thick green text above people, and then it'll say what type of name display over people, name and health, name. I keep name and health on if you don't want it as you play the game. This is where that setting is. So I'm going to apply real quick, and as you can see, my name disappears. Going back in, game info. Now here's a couple of things. If you look up here, you got no numbers in your health bar. If I click on myself, if I target myself, no health bars there either. So what I like to do is I like to put health stats and mana stats. I like to see the number. The rest of these are your own what you want. I do highly recommend putting, while you're a new player, keep all 3 combos, damage, and item creation details all checked. I'll show you why in just a second. Insufficient bag space alert if you want a little icon to appear here when you're running out of space. I don't like chat bubbles. If you're new, keep the tutorial on. Really kind of want to put the frame rate on. It's going to appear right here in a second. It shows you if you're lagging. Now, I like to move damage, health, info, party. I like to make it self. I don't want every number in the world popping up on my screen. When I hit apply, you'll notice that I now have numbers up here. I also have my FPS hanging out right there. Now notice I said you can restrict it. I'm bouncing between 60, 90, 70, and 100. I don't really need to restrict it at the moment because I'm not hitting my cap. That's just where that stuff is. Functionality. These are all based on player preference. The big one that I like to point out is skill deployment location. This is any ground reticle or teleport that requires a target. A skill deployment location just means you're going to have to click the button once instead of twice. Beyond all that, max players displayed. That'll change when you go into show default player appearances. This is also called Power Ranger mode. So as you can see, I have my armor on. If I click show default player appearances, then I'm going to look like this. Every member of my allied group is going to look like this. Every member of the enemy is going to look just like this in red. So that is one of the ways that you can lower lag and stuttering in big fights. Obviously, when your big fight is over, you want to come back in. Oh, the good news about show default player appearances is that when you put default player appearances on, you can bump max players displayed up. When you take show default player appearances off, it reduces your max players displayed. If you don't want to be bothered with, like, duels or anything, you can check all that off here. Here's the display chat filter. Most people can't find it. It's in functionality. And that really is it for settings. The one last thing I will show you is if you like extra shortcut bars, if you like bars on top of bars on top of bars, like you see on Jay's screen, there they are all. They're blocked. They're blacked out. When you see it on Jay's screen, Jay has most of them filled. I find it nice to keep like peripheral and superfluous stuff off to the side, and then just your main combat stuff. It's all basically going to be based on what you like. But I wanted to show it to you because some people are like, where do I get more shortcut bars? And then it's like, ironically, in shortcuts. And then, obviously, all the shortcut bars are all programmable to your heart's content. And that is it, guys. That is it for today's show. What I wanted to do is I wanted to get the crawl stuff out of the way because we got to do crawl, walk, run. I do apologize that this one is kind of spliced together. As you can imagine, moving from PowerPoint and trying to cover a bunch of different things, had to splice this into segments. Going on into the future, the next couple of things that are going to be coming up is we're going to be talking about classes next, and that is going to be a real deep dive. I know today I showed you like a skill manager, a newie. I'm sure you had some questions. The next episode is going to be just on classes, and then the one after that is going to be on crafting. And then the next couple loaded up, ready to go, because as you guys remember, I have all the next 21 ready. I'm going to be talking social organizations, guilds, and families, and then all those specialty currencies. I'm trying to get the big stuff to you guys early on in the series, and then I will be adding more stuff as we go. Rest assured, if you guys have a question and you ask it below, I'll either answer it via a comment or I can do a one-off video to address any major points. And that's it, guys. I'm going to go into post-production and get this one out to you, hopefully for early release during my Friday show. You guys take care. Hey, where are you going? You're not done yet. See these videos? There's videos up here to watch. You got to go over here. Hit the chibi. Subscribe to the channel. Check out the webpage. And I'll see you guys on Twitch.